Hi, this is Rev Ed with today's Back Porch Devotional from Matthew chapter 5, verses 27 through 30. You have heard that it was said, "You shall not commit adultery." But I say to you that everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. For it is better that you lose one of your members than your whole body be thrown into hell. And if your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. For it is better that you lose one of your members than that your whole body go into hell. Well, I didn't plan it this way, but I think it's more than a little serendipitous that today on Valentine's Day, we're talking about love and adultery. You know, when Jesus says, "You have heard that it was said," he's not just quoting some proverb. He's, of course, referencing the divine law that's given to us in the Ten Commandments. You shall not commit adultery. And we don't need to play word games here. Adultery is a broad term that covers any type of sexual behavior outside of the bonds of a covenant marriage between one man and one woman. That may be one of the most countercultural things that you can say these days. I didn't say it, God said it. This is His plan for the expression of human sexuality, and anything outside of that is adultery. But Jesus is going deeper than just the physical act of crossing the boundaries, isn't He? He says, just looking at somebody and letting your eyes linger on them and imagining what you would do with them if you had the opportunity, that is committing adultery. Now, some people have taken this to say, well, I've already imagined doing this with this person. I might as well go ahead and do it because Jesus says they're the same thing. No, He is not saying they're the same thing. He is saying they are both adultery, but clearly going through the actual act of betraying your spouse or being unfaithful in the circumstance that God has called you to, obviously, you're engaging somebody else, you're dragging them into your sinful behavior. It's much worse. However, Jesus again is talking about this business of fulfilling the law, and He's filling it so full that it overflows. And so what He's saying is you have to guard your heart. You have to guard your imagination. And He talks about getting ruthless with the things that lead us to sin. If your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. If your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. It's better to lose one of your members than to be thrown into hell yourself. We have to be ruthless with sin because it'll take a foothold and then grab as much as it can of us. The Puritan author and pastor John Owen liked to say, "Be killing sin, or sin will be killing you." So we have to be ruthless about what enters our minds and our imaginations and how we act. We cannot play around with these things. And what Jesus is pointing out is that adultery starts in the heart. The Pharisees were content as long as they didn't actually cross that physical boundary, but they could gaze all day long at somebody and imagine things that were beyond those boundaries. Jesus says that's not nearly enough. And just because He said everyone who looks at a woman with lustful intent, He's not trying to exclude anybody from this. This covers everybody. It's not just for men. This is for anybody who looks at another person with a lingering gaze of what all of that might be. Now, we are wired to notice attractiveness. It's part of the way God made us. And noticing that somebody is attractive is not the same thing as looking at them with lustful intent. Lust means to dwell on it, to marinate in it, to let your imagination get fired up with it. And so what we have to do is recognize the power of our mind and the power of our imagination, and to remember that all this junk begins in our hearts. So what we have to do is feed our minds with good stuff and not let the other stuff take up residence there. Paul writes about this in the 4th chapter of Philippians. He says, "Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. You know, you can turn your mind to any subject at all. Think about these birds that you hear singing behind me. There, you're thinking about birds. You can turn your mind to any subject. So what we are to do when our mind starts to drift into lustful ways is we think about something else. You are not compelled. It is not something that you must do because you're inclined a certain way. It's just part of your nature. You know, the book of Hebrews tells us that Jesus is a great high priest who was tempted in every way as we are, yet remained without sin. That's why we can boldly go to him, to the throne of grace for mercy, because he lived the perfect life for us and for our behalf. And we have his strength. You know, Paul writes that there's no temptation that has overtaken you that is not common, but God has provided the way of escape that you may bear up under it. God will provide the way of escape, but a lot of us have to be honest and admit we're not looking for a way of escape. We want to indulge these things. So be mindful of what enters your mind. Guard your heart, that it might be filled with the things of God and not with the things of this world. And on this Valentine's Day, if you are in a committed relationship, celebrate that and give God thanks for it. And if you are not, know that God is not considering you as a secondary type of citizen, but that he himself is your partner in the Lord Jesus Christ. And if and when the time comes for him to give you a partner, he will see fit in his way and in his time, and you can trust him to get it right. But let's guard our hearts, fill them with good things, so that what comes out of us is nothing but good that glorifies our God. God's blessings be upon you this day.